Hello, my name is Keith, and welcome to the first episode of Sunday morning train ride. We are in beautiful Northeast Corridor at the moment, waiting for a train in New York International, or at Newark International Airport. And this is the series where I just ride a train and talk about stuff. It's not train driving involved whatsoever, and this is where first episode, hopefully from many. Let's hopefully not board this train. So as we are waiting for a train, first fail already. As we are waiting for a train in Newark International, I have no idea when the train is about to come. It is coming eventually, and we will board it. I can a little bit talk about why did I choose Northeast Corridor for it. For Sunday morning train ride, and about my plans with this series. First of all, I chose Northeast Corridor because I don't play it much. It has been neglected, but it's still worth to, have some fun in it, and why not to use it as that. And New York is brilliant place anyway, brilliant setting for these kind of things anyway. So with Long Island Railroad, expect us to jump between the two in the future. Right now we are here and waiting for the thing what hopefully comes and stops. And I will talk about like whatever comes to my mind, or something about what happened in my life, or something what I chose. There's a train coming and it stops. And another one is blowing past. Sadly. So we can just look at this one that just did stop here. And no, it's not going towards New York, it's going away from New York. I expect those episodes be about half an hour, 45-minute mark. We will see over time how it will gonna go. Probably today first episode will be a little bit longer, and we can do some train watching. By the way, I was watching from YouTube some footage from people, like many different people. I don't quite recall their names. uh, about Northeast Corridor train watching basically, and yeah, this place is pretty busy, or at least the videos were put together so they looked pretty busy, and they were pretty cool to watch, you know, see different trains and stuff. That begged me, that brought to my mind that why don't we have a chance to choose delivery on ACS 64. Anyway, I really like one livery what they have in real life, and it's salute to heroes, salute to veterans actually. But it's okay, never mind. And once we are here, well, I don't know how entertaining it's going to be. I think the time will show. But I would like to keep this mainly set in New York. Maybe we will, in the future, we will hop around, but mainly set in New York. One thing what I can really talk about as well is that I went ahead after thinking about it for a couple of weeks. Well, since we knew that the cab car and DLC for Northeast Corridor is coming out, I've been thinking hard. I've been leaning yes, and I've been leaning no. And I after watching those real life footages from YouTube, I decided to go ahead, and why not to add them here. Since I already have Northeast Corridor anyway, why not to enhance it with that? And I still hope that eventually, either via Dovetail or via third party, we can have extension to this Northeast Corridor on both sides, towards north and towards south. That's my really a big hope. And since we are in Northeast Corridor, why not to talk about a little bit about Northeast Corridor in a first Sunday morning train raid. The Northeast Corridor is an electrified railroad line in the northeast megalopolis of the United States. Owned primarily by Amtrak, it runs from Boston through Providence, New Haven, New York City, Philadelphia, through Wilmington and Baltimore to Washington, D.C. The neck closely parallels Interstate 95 for most of its length and is the busiest passenger rail line in the United States by ridership and service frequency as of 2013. The Northeast Corridor carries more than 2,200 trains daily, branches to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Springfield, Massachusetts, and various points in Virginia are not considered part of the Northeast Corridor, despite frequent service from routes that run largely on the corridor. The corridor is used by many Amtrak trains, including the high-speed Acela Express, intercity trains, and several long-distance trains, Most of the corridor also has frequent commuter rail service operated by the MBTA, Shoreline East, Metro North Railroad, New Jersey Transit, SEPTA, and MARC. Several companies run freight trains over sections of Northeast Corridor. Much of the line is built for speeds higher than the 79 miles per hour, maximum allowed on many U.S. tracks. Amtrak operates Intercity Northeast Regional and Keystone service trains at up to 125 miles per hour, as well as North America's only high-speed train, the Acela Express, which runs up to 150 miles per hour. On a few sections in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, Acela covers the 225 miles between New York and Washington, D.C. in under 3 hours, and the 2,200 I'm sorry, not 2,000, 229 miles between New York and Boston in under 3.5 hours. Under Amtrak's $151 billion Northeast Corridor plan, which hopes to roughly halve travel times by 2040, trips between New York and Washington via Philadelphia will take 94 minutes. The Northeast Corridor was built by several railroads between the 1830s and 1917. The route was later consolidated under 2 railroads, the New York Haven, and Hartford Railroad, between Boston and New York, and the Pennsylvania Railroad, between New York and Washington. The NEC is a cooperative venture between Amtrak and various state agencies, NEC as Northeast Corridor. Amtrak owns the track between Washington and New Rochelle, New York, a northern suburb of New York City. The segment from New Rochelle to New Haven is owned by the states of New York and Connecticut. Metro North Railroad commuter trains operate there. Amtrak owns the tracks north of New Haven to the border between Rhode Island and Massachusetts. The final segment from the border north to Boston is owned by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. At just over 453 miles, the Northeast Corridor is the longest electrified rail corridor in the United States. Most electrified railways in the country are for rapid transit or commuter rail use. The Keystone Corridor is the only other electrified intercity main line. Nothing new. Currently, the corridor uses 3 catenary systems from Washington, D.C. to Sunnyside Yard, just east of New York Penn Station. Amtrak's 25 Hz traction power system supplies 12 kilowatts at 25 Hz from Sunnyside to Mill River, just east of New Haven. The former New Haven Railroad system, since modified by Metro North, supplies 12.5 kilowatts at 60 Hz from Mill River to Boston, The much newer 60 Hz traction power system supplies 25 at 60. All of Amtrak's electric locomotives can switch between these systems at speed. In addition to catenary, the East River tunnels have 750 watt DC third rail for Long Island Railroad trains, and the North River tunnels have third rail for emergency use only. In 2006, several high-profile electric power failures delayed Amtrak and commuter trains on the Northeast Corridor up to 5 hours. Railroad officials blamed Amtrak's funding woes for the deterioration of the track and power supply system, which in place is almost 100 years old. These problems have decreased in recent years after tracks and power systems were repaired and improved. In September 2013, one of 2 feeder lines supplying power to the New Haven line failed, while the other feeder was disabled for service. The lack of electrical power disrupted trains on Amtrak and Metro-North Railroad, which shared this segment in New York State. In 2003, Amtrak accounted for about 14% of intercity trips between the cities served by the Northeast Corridor and its branches. The rest were taken by airline, automobile, or bus. A 2011 study estimated that in 2010, Amtrak carried 6% of the Boston-Washington traffic, compared to 80 for automobiles, 8 to 9% for intercity bus and 5% for airlines. Amtrak's share of passenger traffic between New York City and Boston has grown from 20% to 54% since 2001. And 75% of public transport travelers between New York City and Washington, D.C. go by train. These Amtrak trains serve Northeast Corridor stations and run at least partially on the corridor. Ashley Express high-speed rail Boston, Washington, D.C. Boston to Washington, D.C. that is. Cardinal, New York to Chicago via Washington, D.C. Only Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Carolinian, New York to Charlotte, North Carolina. Crescent, New York to New Orleans. And, this is one of my dreams, to be on that journey from New York to New Orleans. Please check out the history of the Crescent, and there should be lots of YouTube footage and some documentaries on YouTube of what you can see. It's really, really nice. Keystone Service, higher speed rail Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to New York. Northeast Regional, the one that we are waiting at the moment. Higher speed rail Boston, Springfield, New York to Washington, D.C., Richmond, Newport News, Roanoke, Virginia. Palmetto, Savannah, Georgia to New York. Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh to New York via Northeast Corridor and Philadelphia to Harrisburg Main Line. Silver Meteor, Miami, Florida to New York. Silver Star, Miami, Tampa, Florida to New York. Vermont, St. Albans, Vermont to Washington, D.C. via Northeast Corridor and New Haven to Springfield Line. 7 other trains terminate at Northeast Corridor stations, but do not use any Northeast Corridor infrastructure outside the terminus. The New Haven to Springfield Shuttle, New Haven to Springfield, Massachusetts, via the Amtrak-owned New Haven to Springfield branch line of the Northeast Corridor. 5 Amtrak services operate via the Empire Corridor, a line largely owned by CSX, with other sections owned by Metro, North Railroad, and Amtrak. It meets the Northeast Corridor at New York Penn Station. Adirondack, New York to Montreal, Empire Service, Higher Speed Rail, Niagara Falls to New York. Most trains terminate at Albany, Rensselaer, with 2 trains continuing to Niagara Falls. Ethan Allen Express, Rutland, Vermont to New York. Lakeshore Limited, New York, Boston to Chicago. Maple Leaf, New York. Guess where? Of course, Toronto. The Capital Limited runs from Washington, D.C. to Chicago and uses Northeast Corridor infrastructure at Washington Union Station. Due to the wide availability of Northeast regional frequencies, the SL Express, the Keystone Service, and the Pennsylvanian, as well as commuter rail, most long and medium haul trains operating along the New York-Washington leg of the Northeast Corridor do not allow local travel between Northeast Corridor stations. In most cases, long and medium haul trains only stop to discharge passengers from Washington and in some cases Alexandria northward and to receive passengers from Newark to Washington. This policy is intended to keep seats available for passengers making longer trips. The Vermonter is the only medium-haul train that allows local travel in both directions between New York and Washington. As of 2013, the Federal Railroad Administration is drawing up a master plan for developing the corridor through 2040, taking into account various projects and proposals by various agencies and advocacy. The plan is to be complete in spring 2015. Much of the proposed improvements are unfunded. In 2013, Japanese officials pitched the country's maglev train technology, the world's fastest for the Northeast Corridor, to regional US politicians. The trains could travel from New York to Washington in an hour. Pretty good, isn't it? Meanwhile, let's see. Is there anything coming? Well, something has to eventually come because there's yellow lines on the line. Alright, is this one ours? There's coming as well. see, we can look at this one. Arriving beautifully, stopping eventually. And I apologize, I still have my running nose. So how far is it? Oh, it's right here. As we are looking to board the train, I will continue. Isn't that nice? Looking at the train coming in. The train is dark. Why are you dark, mate? So, which one do we board? We go there. To business class. We can find out and figure out stuff later on. Where should we sit? Ooh. What's in here? Nothing. Okay. I don't mind the leg room. Let's sit here. No. That looks like a better place to sit. Yes, it does. It actually looks like a better place to sit. So, yeah. As we are going to have lots of those travels. Come on, it's not that hot, not that cold outside. It's a bit chill, but not that chill. We have lots of time to look around the trains and stuff in our future episodes. As we are sitting in here, let's continue with a little bit. So, okay. In October 2010, Amtrak released a vision for high-speed rail on the Northeast Corridor, an aspirational proposal for dedicated high-speed rail tracks between Washington, D.C. and Boston, projected to cost about $117 billion. The project would allow speeds of 220 miles per hour, reducing travel time from New York to Washington to 96 minutes, including a stop in Philadelphia, and from Boston to New York to 84 minutes. The proposed alignment will closely follow the existing Northeast Corridor south of New York City. North of the city, several different alignments will be studied. One option will parallel interstates 684, 84 and 90 through Danbury, Waterbury and Hartford, Connecticut. Another would follow the existing shoreline route paralleling Interstate 95 A third would run along Long Island, and a new bridge or tunnel across Long Island Sound to Connecticut. In 2012, Amtrak revised its cost estimate to $151 billion. We're talking about US dollars. The 438-mile HSR route is planned to be completed by 2030. Washington to New York, and by 2040, New York to Boston. In February 2011, Amtrak announced plans for the Gateway project between New York Penn Station and Newark Penn Station. Newark Penn Station and New York Penn Station. The planned project would The planned project would create a high-speed alignment across the New Jersey Meadowlands and under the Hudson River, including the replacement of the Portal Bridge, a bottleneck. It is projected to cost $14.5 billion and be completed in 2025. In May 2011, a $294.7 million federal grant was awarded to fix congestion at Harold Interlocking, the USA's second busiest rail junction after Sunnyside Yard. The work will lay tracks to New York, Connecticut Railroad right-of way, allowing Amtrak trains arriving from or bound for New England to avoid NJT and LIRR trains. Financing for the project was jeopardized in July 2011 by the House of Representatives, which voted to divert the funding to unrelated projects. The project is currently funded by FRA and the MTA. In December 2016, the NEC Future's final environmental impact statement was released. On July 12, 2017, the Federal Railroad Administration revealed the record of decision for the project. On August 26, 2016, Vice President Joe Biden announced a $2.45 billion federal loan package to pay for the new Acela equipment, as well as upgrades to the Northeast Corridor. The loans will finance 28 train sets that will replace the existing fleet. The trains will be built by Alstom in Hornell and Rochester, New York. Passenger service using the new trains is expected to begin in 2021, and the current fleet is to be retired by the end of 2022, when all the replacements will have been delivered. Amtrak will pay off the loans from increased Northeast Corridor passenger revenue. So, right now, that much about the Amtrak and Northeast Corridor, what I'm going to talk about. Let's look around the scenery a little bit, relax, have some coffee and water, and just maybe you have a little bit snack and talk about some other things. As I'm also a huge NASCAR fan, I may talk in the future quite a lot about NASCAR as well. As we are running at the end of the first episode, I quickly touch on NASCAR as well, as you will do. As this is Sonoma this weekend, and coming up is the last race for the season, what's covered by Fox. It's not covered by Fox, not covered. That it would be wrong way to say covered by Fox, but shown by Fox. For this is and this season is the last season when we hear about their Waltrip, who's arguably a huge NASCAR legend in the booth commentating the race at Sonoma, and I thought it would be appropriate to pay a tribute for the man, as he is three-time NASCAR Series champion between 1981, 82 and 85, and also runner-up in 1979, 1983 and 1986, posting a modern NASCAR Series record of 22 top 5 finishes in 1983 and 21 top 5 finishes both in 1981 and 1986. Waltrip won 84 NASCAR Cup Series races, including the 1989 Daytona 500, a record 5 in the Coca-Cola 600, 1978, 79, 85, 88, 89, and the track and series records for any driver at Bristol Motor Speedway with 12, 7 consecutive from 1981 to 84. Those victories tie him with Bobby Allison for 4th on the NASCAR's all-time wins list in the Cup Series, and place him second to Jeff Gordon for the most wins in NASCAR's modern era. He is ranked second for all-time pole positions with 59, including all-time highs with 35 on short tracks and 8 on road courses, competing in 809 Cup starts over 4 decades and 29 years. He has scored 271 top 5s and 390 top 10s in NASCAR. And that's it. Walter currently serves as a color analyst for Fox Sports alongside Mike Choi and Jeff Gordon, a columnist at foxsports.com and an author. He is the older brother of former NASCAR driver and the now defunct MWR team owner Michael Waltrip. On April 9th, 2019, during an interview with the Tennessean, Waltrip announced his plan to retire from the commentator box at the conclusion of Fox broadcast schedule for the 2019 NASCAR season in June 2019. So, as he is the legend in many people's eyes in the world NASCAR, I thought I'd pay a fitting tribute to him, and me, for instance, will definitely miss him. Yes, he's not been quite on the par with commentaries, but I don't buy that he hasn't done his best. I've always believed he's been on his best, and you have to remember NASCAR has races every season. It can't be turned on every single week, because every week is a race, and I think he has done a hell of a job, and for me he is one of the voices of NASCAR, and it will be odd next season when there is no Darrell Waltrip in a booth. But times move on, and progress is expected at all times. So I also believe it's end of an era and it's start of something new, whatever it may be. I'm not going to don't find the right word, speculate who's gonna be the next one or who's gonna take over. It's not my business, and I'll let other people who love to speculate about those things to do that, while we are all looking at the magnificent scenery. Well, that's just beautiful. So I'll just leave it at that. The legend is stepping away from the commentary booth, and yeah, I will definitely, me personally, will definitely miss him. I'm not going to talk about Sonoma much, or even about the last race in Michigan. No, not needed. Last race was 2 weeks ago, and Sonoma is about to come. In fact, I even haven't looked at the news, who's starting where and why, and what's the latest stories in NASCAR. But expect those kind of things in the future. I definitely talk about that. Not week in, not and week out, because this is not going to be. It's going to be a regular series, but it's not going to be. There's gonna be gaps between. You know, I do some other stuff and stuff like that. So this is the first ever. This was the first ever episode of Sunday Morning Train Ride, and I really hope that you did enjoy it, and there may be coming some. There's definitely coming some more. We will see how we get on and what we find to talk about. It's not gonna be about, you know, about the stuff of what I was talking now, like about Northeast Corridor, or it's pretty much keeping it like free roaming thing. Maybe a little bit touching to NASCAR stuff here or there. Definitely not heroic. Going to pretty much treat it as a podcast, not as much of a gameplay. Gameplay is here, just you know, fun. And yeah, I'm also trying to stay clear from swearing, and trying to control my language a little bit. So I wish to thank you for joining with me as we leave Secaucus Junction, and I hope to meet you again next week on next Sunday morning. Meanwhile, I wish you a nice week, and there's definitely some more train sim stuff coming on your way. A little bit maybe about, well, there's definitely stuff coming already lined up from Northern Trans-Pennine route still, where we are not finished yet, where I am not finished yet. Sometimes I think I will never get over with it. Anyway, there's if you like Northern Trans-Pennine, then tune in. Lots of stuff coming on your way. My name is Keith, and until next Sunday, take care.